Benedict was just 13 when his father, a strict but kind secondary school teacher, decided it was time for him to enter the next stage of his life. After finishing primary 6 with good grades, his parents enrolled him in one of the most respected Catholic secondary schools in Owerri. It was a boarding school known for discipline, academic excellence, and moral upbringing. On the morning of his departure, Benedict's mother packed his box with neatly ironed uniforms, toiletries, provisions, and a Bible. She gave him plenty of advice: pray always, listen to your teachers, and do not join bad friends. His father, though not a man of many words, looked him in the eyes and said, "Remember where you come from. You are my son. Make me proud." The long drive to Owerri filled Benedict with mixed feelings. He was excited about his new life, but also afraid of leaving the comfort of home. Boarding school, he had heard, was tough. When they arrived, the compound was wide and filled with tall trees, old classroom buildings, hostels, and a large chapel that stood in the center. He could already hear the ringing of bells and the shouts of seniors ordering juniors about. His father handed him over to the hostel master, a stern man in white soutane, and after a short prayer, left him there. That was the first night Benedict slept away from home, surrounded by strangers. Within his first week, Benedict came to understand that boarding school life had its own laws. Seniors were kings, juniors were servants, and everyone respected the authority of the reverend fathers who ran the place. It was during evening prep that Benedict first met senior Benjamin. Benjamin was in SS3, tall like a giant, almost 6.9 feet, broad-shouldered, muscular, and very neat. He was well known in the whole school, not just for his strength and looks, but also for his brilliance. In mathematics, he was unmatched. Teachers respected him, priests admired him, and many juniors feared him. Benjamin noticed Benedict struggling with a maths exercise one evening. He walked over, glanced at the question, and within minutes explained it so simply that Benedict immediately understood. From that day, Benjamin called him his school son. In boarding schools, this was normal. A senior would pick a junior to mentor, protect, and sometimes use for errands. For Benedict, this felt like a blessing. With Benjamin as his school father, no other senior dared to bully him. He was safe. As weeks turned into months, Benedict realized that his life was much easier than most of his classmates. While other juniors were punished for small mistakes, fetching water late, being noisy in class, or failing to polish shoes, Benedict was spared. If anyone tried to punish him, Benjamin would appear, his tall figure casting a shadow, and the matter would end immediately. Benjamin also continued teaching him mathematics. The more time they spent together, the better Benedict became in solving problems. Soon, he was among the best in his class. Teachers praised him, not knowing the secret behind his sudden improvement. Benjamin gave him small gifts too: biscuits, canned milk, sometimes pocket money. He even shared his textbooks and materials with him. To Benedict, this was more than he ever expected. His school father was not only his protector but also his guide. Yet, Benedict noticed things he could not fully explain. Benjamin sometimes treated him with unusual closeness, calling him by pet names, placing his arm around his shoulder in ways that felt strange. Benedict, being young, did not fully understand, but he felt both proud and confused. As time passed, Benedict began to observe the hidden culture of the school. He realized he was not the only one with a school father. Many seniors had chosen juniors, and the relationships often went beyond protection and mentorship. Rumors spread among the boys, but nobody dared to speak openly. Everyone knew that challenging a senior could bring disaster. The priests and teachers seemed blind to this. To them, boys were disciplined, studying hard, and living a holy life. But inside the hostels, in the corners of classrooms, and during night prep, different things happened. Benedict felt trapped between gratitude and fear. His father always told him to focus on his studies, but how could he explain what was going on inside the school? The thought of reporting Benjamin seemed impossible. Benjamin was admired by priests and teachers alike. He came from a rich family. His word carried weight. Who would believe a small boy against such a powerful figure? So Benedict remained silent. By his second term, Benedict's feelings toward Benjamin had become complicated. He admired him for his brilliance, strength, and kindness. He enjoyed the protection and the privileges that came with being his school son. But he also carried a secret discomfort. There were moments when Benjamin's attention felt overwhelming. Late at night, while other boys slept, Benedict would lie awake, thinking about his situation. Was this normal? Was this what all juniors went through? Could he ever talk about it without being mocked or punished? He prayed quietly in the chapel sometimes, asking God to give him wisdom and strength. The big crucifix above the altar seemed to look down on him with silent understanding, but no clear answers came. As SS3 students began preparing for their WAEC exams, Benjamin became even busier, but he never forgot Benedict. He still called him often, still shielded him, still offered gifts and guidance. Their bond grew deeper, and for Benedict, it felt like walking on a rope, safe on one side, dangerous on the other. The boy was torn between gratitude and fear, between admiration and confusion. He did not know that his experience was not unique. Many others had walked that same path in the hidden world of boarding schools. And so the days went on, the bells ringing for prayers, the shouts of seniors filling the air, the classrooms buzzing with studies, while Benedict's secret life remained hidden in the shadows of the hostel. The hostels were noisy, crowded, and full of life. Each dormitory had dozens of boys, arranged in rows of iron bunk beds. Juniors usually took the lower bunks, while seniors occupied the top. The air was always thick with the smell of soap, sweat, and sometimes kerosene from the small lamps boys secretly used at night. Every morning at 5 a.m., a bell would ring loudly, waking the entire school. Boys rushed to the bathrooms with buckets, pushing and shouting. Water was scarce, so juniors like Benedict had to wake even earlier to fetch it from the tanks before the seniors came. But unlike others, Benedict rarely suffered in this struggle. Benjamin always made sure his school son had enough water and was never beaten in the bathroom rush. After prayers and mass, the day stretched into classes, sports, prep, and endless rules. Punishments were common. A boy could be asked to frog jump across the compound, cut grass under the hot sun, or kneel down for hours. Juniors feared the cane as much as they feared hunger. But Benedict's life was different. Though he was small and new, he walked with a certain pride. Everyone knew he belonged to Senior Benjamin. It was like walking under an umbrella of power. Benjamin's love for mathematics was something that inspired even the teachers. During evening prep, he often solved the most difficult questions on the board, explaining step by step until even the slower student could understand. He used the same patience on Benedict. At night, when others struggled with homework, Benedict would sit with his school father, learning shortcuts and formulas. Gradually, numbers began to make sense. Equations that once looked like strange symbols now became puzzles he could solve with ease. Soon, Benedict was topping his class in mathematics. His classmates whispered among themselves, "No wonder. His father is Senior Benjamin." Some envied him, others respected him. For Benedict, it was both a blessing and a burden. In boarding school, authority was everything. The priests commanded respect, the teachers demanded obedience, and the seniors ruled the hostels. Juniors had little voice. Benedict noticed how boys who complained too much were labeled as weaklings or rebels and made to suffer more. Some juniors secretly wept at night, hiding their faces under pillows. Others learned to endure silently, hoping for the day they would become seniors themselves. This was why Benedict never considered reporting Benjamin. Who would he tell? And even if he did, who would believe him? The priest saw Benjamin as one of the best students. The seminarians admired his discipline. To expose him was unthinkable. So, Benedict carried his confusion like a hidden wound. By the third term, SS3 students were under serious pressure. WAEC was approaching, and the atmosphere in school became tense. Teachers drilled the students daily, giving them endless past questions. The library was always full, and silence during prep became stricter. Benjamin, despite his popularity, was never careless. He studied late into the night, his long frame bent over his books, his lamp burning steadily. Benedict admired his discipline and often wondered how one person could be so strong in mind and body. Sometimes Benjamin would call Benedict aside, away from the crowd, and speak to him softly. He told him to focus on his studies, to avoid wasting time, and to remember that life outside school was even tougher. These words sank deep into Benedict's heart. In those moments, Benjamin felt more like a mentor than a tyrant. But there was always an undercurrent of fear. Benedict never knew what to expect, kindness or pressure, encouragement or silence. The juniors often gossiped among themselves when seniors were not around. In hushed tones, they talked about how their school fathers treated them. Some spoke proudly of the food, gifts, and protection they received. Others hinted at darker things but quickly fell silent. Benedict listened but rarely joined. He knew that many of them suspected his closeness with Benjamin, but no one dared to ask directly. In the world of boarding school, secrets were common, and silence was a survival skill. Still, these whispers troubled Benedict. He wondered if all this was normal, if every junior went through the same cycle of fear and privilege. The chapel was the only place where Benedict felt some peace. During Sunday Mass, the organ played softly, the incense filled the air, and the tall crucifix above the altar reminded him of home. He often knelt there long after others had left, whispering short prayers, "God, give me wisdom. God, keep me safe. God, show me what to do." But God seemed silent. Or maybe the answers were hidden in the courage he had not yet found. When the time came for WAEC, the whole school held its breath. The SS3 students moved about like kings, untouchable, focused only on their final exams. After weeks of tension, the papers ended. There was relief in the air. Benjamin, along with his mates, prepared for graduation. The juniors watched with mixed feelings, admiration, envy, and fear of what new seniors might come. For Benedict, the thought of losing Benjamin brought confusion. Would he finally be free, or would he lose the protection that had shielded him all year? The day Benjamin left, he gave Benedict a firm handshake and a few parting words: "Stay strong. Focus on your studies. You are better than you think." And then he was gone, leaving Benedict standing in the middle of the hostel compound, feeling both lighter and strangely empty. After Benjamin and his mates graduated, the school felt different. The hostel suddenly grew quieter without the booming voice of the tall SS3 student. Juniors whispered that the era of Benjamin had ended. Some boys celebrated, others missed the strange mixture of fear and admiration that he brought. For Benedict, it was like waking up from a long dream. He was no longer under Benjamin's shadow. At first, he felt exposed. Without his protector, seniors could punish him freely. He was now just another junior, carrying buckets, scrubbing floors, and rushing to answer bells. But something had changed in him. The long nights of confusion, the silence he carried, and the lessons he had received made him stronger than most of his classmates. He had learned how to survive quietly, how to endure pressure, and how to keep his eyes fixed on his books. Life in boarding school continued as usual. The bells rang, the punishments came, the prayers echoed in the chapel. But Benedict was no longer the timid boy who entered in September. He had grown wiser, sharper, and more determined. Mathematics became his strength. His teachers noticed his progress and praised him openly. Some even predicted he would one day be like Benjamin, brilliant and confident. But Benedict knew that his journey was different. He did not want to rule through fear, he wanted to rise through knowledge and discipline. At night, when juniors whispered their complaints, he sometimes offered quiet advice. He had learned from experience that not every burden could be shared, but wisdom could still guide a person through storms. There were many things Benedict never told anyone, not his parents, not his classmates, not even the priests. He carried those memories like locked boxes in his heart. Sometimes, during morning mass, he would look at the tall crucifix and wonder why God allowed silence to rule over certain things. But deep inside, he knew his life had been shaped by all he had endured. The pain, the fear, the protection, and the confusion had all left their mark. What he decided was simple: he would not let his past define his future. As the years went on, Benedict climbed into higher classes. He became a senior himself, though not the loudest or the most feared. He carried himself with quiet confidence, guiding juniors in academics, especially in mathematics. He refused to abuse the authority he had gained. He remembered what it felt like to be powerless, and he promised himself he would never repeat the same mistakes he had seen. In the end, Benedict found strength not in fear or power, but in resilience. His story became one of silent survival, hidden battles, and the courage to keep moving forward even when the road was dark. The boarding school in Owerri shaped Benedict's teenage years in ways he could never have imagined. It taught him discipline, resilience, and silence. It also taught him that life is not always fair, and that sometimes the strongest victories are the ones nobody sees. When he finally left the school years later, walking through the gates with his box on his head, he knew one thing for certain: he had faced shadows, endured storms, and still carried light inside him. And that was enough.